Hey there! Here we are once again on Buena Vista Farm. Yesterday I spent some time cleaning up an area, thinking about what I wanted to share with you. We have some things to show. Behind us, I started expanding a contour that we've been building for a while. And so I want to show you some things. Obviously, we continue to get this nice firewood out, and this is the Nazareno, but also we have some Chilco wood that we've gotten. But let's take a look at how we expand existing contours. Once you place the contour, it becomes kind of a fixed structure. But you don't have to plan it all out from the beginning. If you like a small contour, you can expand it left or right. So let's take a look here. Here we can see we had a contour behind our firewood storage area, which is overfull right now. We might need to build another one. But what we did yesterday is we found some old trunks. And we piled up all the grass and branches and leaves that we got cleaning up this area, which we'll see in a second. And so one thing I want to mention is stomping them down. So as you throw in leaf litter and branches and leaves, it's all puffy and full of air. And so one of the things that we can do to keep it decomposing and going down is we can stomp it down. This is one of my favorite activities. And so I'm just going to take a run and come right back, okay? And you could do this over time. You could do it as often as you like, and as these things break down, one of the most interesting things I've noticed, and we could take a sweep around this area. Some people say, well, if the leaf litter is good, it should cover the ground. What are you doing scraping it all up and throwing it on the contour? Well, if you take a look here, for example, obviously we don't even get close to getting all the leaf litter. There's still broken bits of wood and grass. I scrape or pile it up manually and throw it on the pile, but I'm not trying to clean it up so it's just bare ground. A lot of stuff gets left behind, and that does decompose. But one interesting thing about this leaf litter, a lot of the minerals do decompose into the ground. It keeps a cover for the soil humidity. But as these things decompose under the direct sun, a lot of that carbon is going to gasify back into the air, carbon dioxide. And, think what you want to think about carbon, but I want that carbon to sink into our ground. I want it to become part of the soil, or as much of it as possible. So one of the things that happens when we pile this up is we get more area of decomposition and microlife underneath, and we get more of that carbon being trapped. And so that's another reason why we want to squish out the air. We're going to be increasing an anaerobic layer where there's not as much oxygen or no oxygen, depending on how much rain we're getting. And so we're going to get and trap more carbon into the ground with these thicker piles. So that's a benefit to our soil fertility. Another thing I wanted to mention now behind us here, one thing that made me nervous as we were starting to do these contours, and this is generally throughout permaculture, how can you make a final decision about a design before you have all the information? And if you need all the information to make a design, well, how long are you going to wait before you act? And so in permaculture, they recommend a lot of times 1 year. Observe for a whole year before you make any decisions. And it's good advice to observe. But at some point, you have to act. You have to make decisions. And these contours are semi-permanent, but really not as permanent as you might fear if you're having to make decisions. We have actually right here an older contour that we've decided to abandon in favor of this lower one. So if we want to come and look here, even recently some wood has been thrown on here, some branches, but we haven't favored it. We haven't continued to pile on. And in fact, even I'm starting to pull some of this wood out and throw it on the lower one. And so, as you can see here, we've got old bamboo wood here. Let's see if I can pull it out. Old bamboo wood, lots of great soil quality underneath. But this one is not going to be favored anymore. We're going to favor the lower one, open this space up. When we made this, it seemed like the right place for a contour, but it's not actually as expandable. It kind of cuts into the path here on the other side as well. There's one higher and there's one lower, so it's kind of the middleman out. It doesn't fit anymore. And so what we're doing is we're kind of leaving it, but slowly but surely pulling it apart, using its bits for the other two contours on the side, and not throwing on any new material. And so, yes, it's going to be a slow process. It'll probably look like an abandoned contour for 6 months or a year more, but eventually this will not be here and this one will be here. And so we can make these changes over time in the fourth dimension. I'm happy still that we made that at the time, because making these small little contour experiments is what's led us to the knowledge and confidence that we have putting in other ones. And as this space has evolved, it just happened that this one doesn't fit anymore. And so it's not really a big deal. It's not as much of a big deal as I thought it would be before, when I was worried, like, oh, I don't know. Same thing with trees. Now, this is a tree that we planted. It's a beautiful tree, but also the native trees come up. And a lot of people preemptively cut down the tree. They say it'll be knee high, and they'll say, oh my gosh, that'll knock down your house. It'll fall over on the house and it'll kill us all. Well, not tomorrow, maybe in 30 years, but between knee high and falling onto your house, there's a lot of days in between there. There's a lot of fourth dimensional space to make the decision. So one of the things that we've done is we've left trees up and until they cause us a problem. So that's another thing, you know, especially if you're planting trees. Now, this is a high quality tabibuya tree, the Akobo. And so we didn't really know that this was the right spot for it. Now, it turns out we've cut the path around it. It's gonna work real well. But if you're gonna plant a lot of trees, yes, you need to think in the fourth dimension. But don't be afraid. Plant the tree, and maybe you plant 10 trees, and maybe only 4 of them end up where you want it to be. Well, then you got a walking stick, or you got some other product out of this tree. You can cut it down later. If it doesn't work, you can adjust that, make that adjustment later. And so we've had great benefits, even though observing, we've done a lot of observing and patience, but we've also had great benefits taking that next step, taking the risk, and you know what? If it doesn't work out, we'll move it later.